area. At least I copy and paste it. Oh, I didn't.
Son of a.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome in to another episode of the Triple Play Fantasy Baseball Show, a proud member of Underdog and the Underdog Fantasy family. And if you head over to underdogfantasy.com and you use code TRIPLE, you'll get a 100% deposit match up to $100. So if you're looking to draft some fantasy baseball with the season just about a month and a half away, now's a good time to head over to Underdog Fantasy and use that code. And again, they will match you up to $100, you doubling your first deposit. So a great deal over at Underdog Fantasy. We're with you guys tonight, Marty Party, Doc, a little cheesecake all in the house to talk more fantasy baseball. I'm going to open the floor up, fellas. Is there anything new or anything exciting that the Triple Play Fantasy audience should know about?
My life is very exciting. This week, I will be heading down to the beautiful city of Cleveland for the Glarf draft. So all 15 of us, actually 13 of us, 2 will not make it, but 13 of us in this, we rented out this huge like loft house for the weekend. So we'll be there, live draft. I have yours truly has the number 1 pick, as I was telling you.
Okay, you said you bought the shirt just for the occasion.
Yeah, so for you guys just on the podcast, it's the Legend of Acuna. So it's a Legend of Zelda spoof, and it has like bombs times 41, and then diamonds like stolen bases 73, and then all of the stats. It's dope. It's a really cool shirt. So I'm going to be wearing it proudly when I take him number 1 overall.
So 2 questions. Number 1, how far is the drive to Cleveland from Detroit? Number 2.
3 hours.
That's not bad. And then number 2, there's all 10 of you guys are staying in one spot, you said?
Oh, no. As you know, I am very bougie. Tyler and I have our own Airbnb off-site. I would never stay in a frat house like that. That's insane.
There was enough frat when you just hung out with Eric and I.
That was enough, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like an awesome time, and definitely with Glarf kicking off, it means fantasy baseball season is really right around the corner. Doc, you said you were setting your KDS for TGFBI, and you have an interesting strategy where you want your draft slot right now.
KDS at 10. Hopefully I get it. Take Trey Turner and get a starting pitcher like Garrett Cole on the back end. But I'm whipping up some bets. You know, Marty is getting into draft mode, and I'm getting into draft mode myself. But betting comes first and foremost for this guy.
Diversity is always good for this podcast, so you will be leading our listeners right with some good bets. We already talked pre-show about some Shane Bieber unders that you liked, so I'm sure our listeners will, if they want to know more, they'll be able to contact Doc here, and he'll lead them the right way for that. And Cheesecake, you're like Marty. I know you're draft prepping, and you are ready to go.
I'm ready to go. I think there's something that needs to be mentioned right now, and it is because this podcast is a baseball podcast and we don't like to talk about football, and any good American would have wanted the Detroit Lions to win the NFC Championship game, but it turns out that you two schmoes, your teams, you Maryland brothers who like Kansas City and San Francisco, are playing each other in the Super Bowl.
I didn't even realize it. At one point it was all of our own teams.
I want to know if there's going to be some brother-on-brother violence this weekend.
No, this got hashed out in 2020. We're moving on with baseball.
They played in 2020, and all my emotions were invested in that. Now I just hope the Chiefs win, but if the Niners win, I'm going to give Eric a call and congratulate him if they do it. But obviously, you know where my heart lies. So
yeah, if Kansas City wins, you guys might have to find a new fourth. I heard Vinny would be a good sub for me. Just get someone that has my sense of humor, please.
Okay, well, that shouldn't be hard to find. All right, well, let's get into what we're talking about, the meat and potatoes of tonight. It is the position previews, and we are going to finish up the infield talking about the catcher position. So kind of went all around the infield diamond, and next week we'll go into the outfield portion. So we're talking catchers tonight. A little different than all the other positions. There's obviously not quite as many as you might see second base, shortstop, or third base, all these multi-position eligible players. Catcher there are some people that are multi-position at catcher, but it is far and few in between compared to the other infield positions. So this will be an interesting discussion. There are a lot of great value at catcher this year. I think it's as deep as it ever has been with the quantity of solid catchers that there are. Maybe there's not the true difference maker that there was in the past, but that'll be something we will get into tonight. So let's kick it off. We know as we do, we'll go through each range on NFBC over the last 2 weeks, and we'll look at the 1 through 10, 11 through 20, and 20 plus of guys that we are liking and fading. So I want Marty Party to kick us off here in the top 10. Who at ADP are you trying to draft the most of this season?
So I had one of these cop-out answers last week, and no one yelled at me, so I'm gonna try to get away with it again. But this is with unless I can get Will Smith at some kind of deal, but I'm worried about him and his plate appearances because Ohtani is going to clog up the DH, presumably maybe all season, maybe half the season. Will Smith's going to miss out on those at bats, so he's going to need to be catching. So if Will Smith's at somewhat of a discount, I'll try to get him. But if not, the tier where it all ends for the overall number one catcher, Wilson Contreras, Sean Murphy, and Sal. I'll take any one of those that fall to me in that spot around 9-10 rounds. Sal's, the only thing about him is he's obviously injury prone at this old age, but he'll play a lot at DH. Wilson Contreras, he played a fourth of his games at DH. So, and they copied what they were doing and what the Cubs did to him the year before. So I expect that to continue. So I love the at-bats there. And Murphy, I think, is still somehow underrated. You know, he was great in Oakland. Then he went to the Braves, best offense in baseball. He's going to have plenty of opportunity there. So I'm kind of going to push off catcher, but not as much as I usually do. Usually I really wait. This year I'm not doing it because I'm worried about batting average. So I need to get one of these guys.
That was such a cop-out answer, Marty. We're yelling at you. You're not getting away with it 2 weeks in a row.
Well, I do think, Doc, you were out on Sal Perez. I have some questions about Sal Perez, too, even though, again, he is now going as the 6th-ranked catcher when he's been going as 1, 2, or 3 the last few seasons. I'm genuinely worried. I mean, he hit 23 home runs last year and over 500 plate appearances. Power was the biggest thing you could get from him. And if the power is starting to decrease with, he's an older player. He's 33 years of age. So there is some concerns there with him. Doc, he's your fade. Is that the biggest question mark for you?
Yeah, so I mean, in a 5x5 league, he's not going to give you any stolen base upside. He has 0.
None in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, none in the last 2 seasons there. The walk percentage dropped from 4.2 to 3.8 to 3.3%, which puts him in the first percentile in terms of walk percentage. So from the on base, i.e. equals runs, he's not going to provide as much there. Barrel percentage has dropped. Hard hit percentage has dropped. He, in 2021, which was his career year, he missed 1 game, but he's played 150 or less in 10 other seasons. So it's almost guaranteed that he will miss some time. And now David has talked about how much he's older at catcher. He's played 10,63.2 innings as catcher. JT Realmuto is second with 8,923.1 innings. There is a huge difference from Sal Perez to the next person in catcher. That much squatting and catching balls. I know what I said, catching balls. That takes a toll on you. And he played 29 games at DH, but who's to say Vinny Pasquantino doesn't play time at DH coming back from shoulder surgery? I think there's a less clear playing path for Sal Perez every day. And I think you're essentially just banking that you'll get some home runs from him. But there's a lot of catchers that provide home run upside.
Yeah. I will say my only pushback there, because I can't argue with you, everything did fall off, but he had blurred vision. He missed time with a hamstring. He hurt his hand. He hurt his finger, and he had a concussion.
Well, part of those are from playing catcher. He did
log 50, a little over 50 games at first base and DH. So
yeah, 50
to your point
exactly.
though, Vinny's coming back Pasquantino, so he'll miss some of those first base opportunities. But yeah, I don't know if I don't think he's done yet. I think he might
I don't
have
think
one
he's
more good
done,
season.
I don't think he's done, but I think his name value is why he's at 6th. If you looked at a blind resume from last year, I don't think that he would be ranked as the 6th catcher.
Marty, just a question really quick. So obviously in his career year, he hit 48 home runs, 121 RBIs, but all the other seasons of his career have been pretty consistent. I take out 2020, obviously, because he only had 156 plate appearances, but 27 home runs in 2018, 23 home runs each of the last 2 seasons after his career year, around 70 to 80 RBIs.
Said 80 RBIs 3 separate times.
Hitting about, a consistent average about 230 to 250-ish for the most part. Like, I feel like he's kind of shown who he is based on that track record. And I think like the fact is people still think maybe that 2021 season is still in there. But when you have 3 other seasons that show one other thing, does that have you more towards that? Or are you still optimistic that he could get kind of in between his career year and what he's normally done?
Yeah, so I'm not paying for his ceiling at this price. I think we're paying for his floor, and the at bats are going to be there. We don't have to, and you'll look as we go down further and further with catchers, most won't get over 500 plate appearances, 550.
Mm-hmm.
He might even get 600 if he stays healthy. So he has an unlimited amount of playing time. He's going to hit 3rd or 4th in that lineup. Most catchers do not. 255 is excellent for a batting average for a catcher, especially playing that much.
Marty, let me ask you, how many games do you think he plays this season? Bacon, injuries, days off?
130.
Okay.
130, 135. And I think if he does that, he puts you in a pretty good spot. Now, that's what I'm thinking, just catcher. He won't get as much at first base because of Vinny. So, but yeah, I was 130, I'll say.
Okay.
The one thing that could go in his favor for Marty's argument here is his home run to fly ball rate has really dropped off over the last few years. 2020, 30.6%, obviously shortened season. 2021, his career year, was 27.7%. And then the last 2 seasons, 16% and 14%. The MLB average is right about 14%-ish. So is he going to stay around the MLB average, or could he get anywhere closer to what he did in 2021 with a 27.7%? If he can get maybe that home run to fly ball rate, maybe in the low 20s, which I don't think is unrealistic, then maybe more of those outs leave the yard and his home runs can spike up a little bit more. That remains to be seen, but just with the decline of home run to fly ball rate makes you think maybe there could be a bounce back in that area for his profile.
And the last thing I'll say, the most important thing to remember is that I'm taking one of Wilson Contreras, one of Murphy, or one of Sal. Whoever drops the most, that's the guy I'm going to take, and I think Sal's worth that.
Okay, fair enough. You did mention another player that I want Art to talk about in just a second here for his dislike. Ray Dominguez is in the chat, so I wanted to acknowledge his catcher question here, or his catcher rankings. First, it would be Will Smith, JT Realmuto, Adley Rutschman, William Contreras, Mitch Garver. Do you guys like Mitch Garver that high? Do you think there's upside for Mitch Garver to be a top 5 catcher this year?
I don't even like Mitch Garver where he's going. He's my next round dislike.
Well, I guess we can touch on that then for you.
I think that's too high for Garver. There are other possibilities for DH there in Seattle. I think he's going to get plenty of plate appearances, but I don't think he's going to have enough to be 6th ranked catcher. I think if you get 400 plate appearances from Garver, he's going to be really productive, but I don't think he's going to get enough plate appearances to be a top 6 catcher.
Okay. I do like the bold prediction aspect of it because he's going to be counting as a catcher, but he'll be a DH, full-time DH. So for the plate appearances aspect, that could be a really nice second catcher for you to have that's just getting those PAs. But you did mention your dislike for this range being Wilson Contreras, and am I correct with that? I think
no. I put a whole bunch of likes and dislikes in there, like Marty did.
All right, hold on. So your likes were you do like the other. Yeah. Is it Wilson or William Contreras?
I like Wilson. I like Marty. I like Marty's strategy with Sal, Contreras, and Murphy. Murphy, I really thought that I was going to come in and recommend not to draft Murphy because of how cold he was in the second half, but I don't think he deserved that cold second half. I also looked into whether or not, Travis Darnold's return from injury affected his production, and his production didn't fall off until far into Darnold's return from injury. So I don't think it was that. I think Murphy just had like a bad luck second half, and it was really bad. So I think he's a really solid catcher there. I also want to just throw one out for our old boy JT Realmuto, who's my top catcher and is going well behind Adley. So I think JT's a good value where he's going.
You're not worried
I agree.
with. Oh, go ahead, Marty.
I was going to say, yeah, I agree with that. He's my number one catcher.
Strictly off the stolen bases, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. I mean, the runs are going to be there. Home runs, I think the power's still there. 15 stolen bases, good batting average. Yeah.
You guys aren't worried at all. Again, 32 years, so we're talking like around the same age as Salvi. The stolen bases dropped off. The power's dropped off. He's shown decline each of the last few seasons. Does that not worry you that there could be more bottoming out here in his profile?
I think he's a safe pick, though. I think he's a safe for ending up in the top 5.
I mean, he's not going to drop from 16 stolen bases to nothing. It drops to like 10 to 12, which is probably leading catchers.
Yeah, I think he's a really safe catcher, and like pretty good chance that he's the top 2 or 3 catcher at the end of the season, especially because of those stolen bases and the lineup he's in, and his combination of playing time. But I think he's solid, and he's going about 25, 30 picks after Rutschman right now. So you get quite a nice discount if you wait on catcher from the top catcher.
So you will pay his price, even though it is less than Adley. He's still expensive right now, going on NFBC among catchers, number 2, 70th pick overall. So if you're looking in a 15-team league, he's going in the 5th round. That's a lot to pay for a catcher.
I don't have him anywhere. So I've done 6 drafts. I don't have him anywhere. So I can't be that. I guess I'm not that in on him. But I think he's going to be really good. It's just where he's going. It just doesn't work out.
I think this is also important to distinguish, the 1 catcher versus 2 catcher leagues.
Yeah.
I mean, again, one thing with
okay.
No, go ahead, Marty. What were you saying?
I was going to say, and 1, it's going to be, if you're in a 10-team league like our infamous league, it's like you just pick the 10 best catchers. So I don't know.
I need to get in this infamous 10-team league, make it 11.
Where he's going, it is a tough spot to be going catcher there. But if I have him on one of my teams, I think if you're in a 2-catcher league, for me, I like to go with a top 5 to 10 catcher as my first catcher. And if I'm going, the later I go with my first catcher, the earlier I get my second catcher, basically.
Completely agree with that.
If I'm getting like Realmuto, then I'm waiting on catcher until I'm in, the 20s of catchers, something like that.
Does it bother you guys at all that all his expected stats showed that he outperformed his peripheral numbers? A 236 expected batting average last season. Also had I'm double checking here, a 315 xWOBA. Which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I'm looking at his stats right now. This is the first season in his career that he's outperformed his expected numbers.
Who's the backup catcher on Philadelphia's depth chart right now? Like, I want to see, like, what is he in danger of losing time?
I'm more concerned, not that he's going to lose time, but you're drafting him as the second catcher because of 20 plus home runs, 10 plus stolen bases, pretty much you think in the bank, or maybe not 20, maybe you're thinking 15 and 10 in the bank. Yeah. And maybe he gives you 15 and 10, but again, you're paying such a high price for him. I think for him to pay off his draft price, he would have to be closer to a 2015 player. So and I'm worried that there is more bottoming out coming with him this season.
Are you just anti drafting a catcher early because of the lack of upside that they'll give you. It seems like the ceiling for catchers is lower this year than it's been in previous years.
I think there's so many good catching options. If I'm going to pay up early, it's for Adley, and that's strictly in points leagues. If it's a roto league, I'm not paying up for catcher at all. But Adley is such an elite player in points leagues with his lack of strikeouts at catcher. I would pay that price for him, depending on if he slips a little bit.
That's a good point. I mean, I worry about Adley's plate appearances dropping because he had 687 last season. I think he's going to be good, but I think it's possible he'll see a dip in plate appearances from last season.
He could, but there's also the factor of another year in the big leagues. Maybe his numbers take another leap forward too, where he's doing more with less.
And that's why he's being drafted where he is.
I will say the books have his home run prop. Adley's at 19.5. So they don't project him for a huge.
What did he have last year? Before I can just pull him up. He had last year,
I want to say
17? In 637 plate appearances, or I'm sorry, 588 at bats officially. He had 20 homers and 80 RBIs. But again, a 277 average, 374 OBP, 425 or 435 slug, a 2.34 line for a catcher is pretty good.
And he just needs to tap into his power. Like he has a pretty lackluster barrel percentage and max exit velocity. So if there's another step of power in there, then yeah, he's going to be the clear number one, maybe for the next 6 years.
They had him hitting leadoff at the beginning of the year too, before they called up Gunner. So it'll be interesting where they have him hit this year.
Yeah, I think again, just how I view it, if it's a points league, I will spend the premium for him. If it's not, then I think you see his average is 50, his min pick's 33, his max is 69. I probably would have to see him, go a little bit after pick. I'd probably have to get him closer to like the maybe like more in like closer around 4 than in the middle of round 3 where he's going.
So do you want to like wait on catchers?
I mean, we'll get into the depth of them, but like Sean Murphy, I think Frank Stanfield actually tweeted out something. I have to read the full article, but he tweeted out an article about Sean Murphy struggling with something with the heat last year and how it was affecting him at the plate. And I have to read that article, but when it wasn't when the heat wasn't a factor, that his numbers were actually really good. And Sean Murphy was again splitting time, and he was one of the better catchers in fantasy last year. Yainer Diaz is the starting catcher for Houston this year. I think there's plenty of value in that, even though he's obviously going as a 5th catcher, which is high, but you can wait basically double the amount that you're waiting for Adley there.
I don't like Diaz there because I don't know defensively how much the Astros want to really depend on him.
Who's their backup catcher though? Because they got rid of Martin Maldonado. They got rid of Maldonado.
Caratini's their backup catcher.
Yeah, and he's defensively, he's a huge upgrade. Only defensively, but I mean that stick. I mean the contact, the XBA, everything looks great there. But I just don't know it's the plate appearances with catcher.
The catcher in the Astros lineup is one of the most meaningless hitting positions in baseball.
But it's been in the past, but they're very confident in Yainer Diaz. They already announced that he's starting.
He played a lot of DH last year too, though. So that's good. To Marty's point, like he played when he got his big breakout when Alvarez was down. So is he going to be losing plate appearances if Alvarez is healthy?
I mean, he's their starting catcher at the end of the day, and then if Alvarez gets hurt, he could always DH too. But I mean, in 355 at bats last year, he had 23 home runs and hit 282 for a catcher. Like that's insane.
I like him. You don't have to.
Again, you're paying right now the 5th catcher, so it's not like he's free. But if you're like, okay, Houston starting catcher in a loaded lineup, and I can get him double the ADP of Adley Rutschman. I can wait 2 more rounds from JT Real Muto, and I can pick up 2 other players I really like, or you need 2 pitchers or whatever. I'm okay with that. Obviously, we'll get into some more like Francisco Alvarez and Bo Naylor. And this is, I feel like you could confidently say that, again, we just brought up Mitch Garver. Mitch Garver is the 16th ranked catcher. He's a full-time DH this year. So unless he gets hurt, he's going to be in the lineup all the time.
We didn't even talk about my 1 through 10 I like.
Yeah, we'll get back on track here, Doc. Give us your 1 through 10 you like, and then we'll move on to the dislikes.
And David, for the record, I am with you on waiting on catcher this year. I like Gabriel Moreno as the 10th ranked catcher, ADP 148. He was acquired from Arizona for the Dalton Varsho trade. And to be honest, Toronto had a lot of catchers between Danny Jansen and Alejandro Kirk. And Gabriel Moreno turned out to be one of the most dispensable ones. But in his first full MLB season, and I say full because he played 111 games, 7.6 walk percentage, 19.7 K percentage. I don't think that's bad for his first year. 6 stolen bases, which is most in the top 10, along with William Contreras. So, catchers, and that's besides JT Realmuto, obviously. But he's going to give you a little bit more stolen base upside as opposed to the Sal Perez's and the Adleys that will give you 1, 2 at most. The Diamondbacks lineup has improved, and they had him hitting third in the NLCS against the Phillies. So I think that shows a vote of confidence there. But last year in 111 games, 284, so above league average, batting average, 7 home runs, 83 runs plus RBIs. And look, he's still 23 years old. I like taking someone with upside. And especially with the improved Diamondbacks lineup, they have Eugenio Suarez, Corbin Carroll will hopefully be healthy, Ketel Marte, Christian Walker. I think Gabriel Moreno fits in pretty well.
Let's finish we finished the like discussion, but the dislikes, we already talked about Eric's concern with Sal Perez. We talked about LC's concern with Adley Rutschman a little bit here. And Marty, you're a little bit concerned about the big dumper in Cal Raleigh for the Seattle Mariners. How come you're concerned about him?
Yeah, for what you would think. I mean, I think he has a good chance of leading all catchers with home runs. He has a fair shot at 30, maybe 32, 33 home runs. So that's great. But he's going to absolutely destroy your batting average. And he plays every single day. He's an outstanding catcher. And so if he does 500 plate appearances, or 400 plate appearances at that average, it really brings it down. So I'd rather just not and just go with a catcher, maybe hits you 25, 30 home runs, but bats 260, or 270.
What would be an acceptable batting average for Cal Raleigh for you, where you're like, he was
250.
250?
250. He hits 250. We're good to
He
go.
ain't hitting 250. He ain't hitting 250.
Maybe 240, but he'd have to
He
hit.
ain't hitting 240.
Now we're getting in like the Schwarber land where he'll hit 220, but if he hits you 43 home runs. So he needs to get to that like 35, 40 before we can really start.
Yeah, and I think
almost makes up for the batting average.
I agree with you because you look right behind him, there are a lot of guys who have batting average plus with some power right behind him going like Contreras is going right behind him. Murphy's going right behind him, and they both have better batting averages with 20 plus home run power.
And I feel like you can easily make up those 5-8 home runs. You can get that off the waiver wire. You can't get batting. You can't get the batting average off the waiver wire. And I forgot who said it, but roughly if 513 at bats with a 232 average brings your overall team, your whole Roto team's average down somewhere around 15 points. So think about that. You could have a 270 team drop all the way down to 255, and now you're in the middle of the pack, or maybe worse if you didn't bake it in. If you properly bake in Cal Raleigh and you really take a lot of upside guys in batting average, it could work, but I'd rather not.
To be fair, I'm out on him too. I probably won't draft him, but it is kind of interesting to note he's cut his K rate each of the last 3 seasons, so his K rate's gone down. His batting average, I think if you asked most people after last year, he hit 211. They're like, there's a very good chance he's probably hitting under 200 this year. But he bounced back and hit 232 after hitting 211 in 2022, excuse me. So, I don't think anybody thought he was hitting 230 last year. Granted, it was a 213 XBA, but...
It was a what?
A 213 XBA.
213 XBA. You can't have that on your team. Because batting average is so full of noise. I mean, that's the underlying number. That could easily be 220 then. If he gets lucky.
Yeah, I would say you're probably looking at like a 220-ish batting average. The way it seems like it's lining up. But yeah, 30 home runs. So I guess you decide that you want to chase power. That would be the big attraction for him here. But
yeah, if you went light your first 3, 4, 5 picks, focused on speed or something and average, then yeah, you could work.
Yeah, but I think none of us are jumping out of our chair to draft Cal Raleigh this year. There's a lot of other catchers here, which we'll get to now in the next range here, the 11 to 20 range for catchers. There are some interesting names here. I want to go to you first here, Doc. Who is the catcher in this range that you feel like you want to draft a lot of?
So I really like Keibert Ruiz this year. I think another young, and Marty beating that drum too, so you can just piggyback off of me. But another young catcher that was involved in a trade, where he's in a new change of environment. And when you look at some of the stats last year, 18 home runs, tied for 8th at the catcher position, 5th in batting average. He hit 260 last year, but he's hit 250 and above all 4 seasons. When you look at, he had 1 stolen base last year, but he had 6 in 2022. So you'd expect that he would have had more with the increased base pass rules. And I'm not saying that he's going to have 6 or more, but that there's that upside there. He is 25 years old. Ground ball percentage has been going down the last 3 seasons from 41.8 to 40.2 to 38.5. And he's a great contact hitter, 10.3 K percentage last year, when we saw that from 11.5 the year before. So I think the Nationals lineup has improved a little bit. They added Nick Senzel. I know they did lose Heimer Candelario. But I think compared to where his ADP was last year, there's a lot of upside for Ruiz.
Yeah, he looked like he really grew as a hitter last year. So I think, there's plenty of value here.
Played 136 games too.
Yeah, he's not going to jump off the page in a stat. I think he's obviously very well known as a defensive catcher. He's a really good, and then he's also someone that hits for a higher average compared to most catchers. But you look at his season long numbers: a 260 average, 18 homers, 67 RBIs, only 58 strikeouts. Again, I don't think he's that perfect number 2 catcher where you plug him in and he just kind of just gives you stats but doesn't win you your week. He just
especially if you went Cal Raleigh, he'd be a good guy to offset that a little bit, try to get your average up a little bit more. And it's funny you said Ruiz, because I think Gabriel Moreno, I'd rather wait and get Ruiz. I think it's pretty much the projections look the same, the contact rate's the same. Maybe get both, really boost your batting average.
Yeah, I think Moreno has a little bit more stolen base upside, and there's probably more counting stats because of the line of contacts. But Ruiz in 63 games in the second half of the season hit 300. How many catchers are doing that?
Mm-hmm. Elsie, I'm interested with your talk with your guys here because you like Jonah Heim and Mitch Garver, but Eric does not like Mitch Garver. So I'm going to let you lead in with the why you like both of them, and then Eric, you can combat why you don't like Mitch Garver.
Yeah, Heim, I think, goes at a good spot. I think his backup catcher in Texas is going to be, I think, Andrew Knizner this season. Not as much of a threat as Garver to steal plate appearances. And Heim really has had good stretches in both of the last 2 seasons. Both of the last 2 seasons, an injury has derailed him from completing a really consistently good season. If we remember last year, before he got injured, he was the top catcher in RBIs. I think a fully healthy season, I think he's a pretty safe draft pick, and he's going behind some younger catchers who need to prove it. I think he's a safe where he's going, so I like him as a draft pick. Garver, I think playing DH in Seattle, I think he's just a nice bet to hit. He's a really good hitter, generally has a good batting average, and generally hits for power. Seattle's not a great place to hit for power, but I think he could have his highest plate appearances. And as I said, 400 would be his highest plate appearances in a season ever. So he could have his highest plate appearances if he gets 400, 450 as a DH in Seattle. And I really like that. Although I think they have other options as DH. I'd like to see him getting some backup catcher reps as well.
Doc, why? So with the fact that he'll be DHing, getting every day at bats guaranteed as long as he's healthy, how come you're out on him?
I mean, do you see him being the full-time DH for the entire year? I'm going to go for his games missed by seasons the last 4 years. The COVID 2020 season, missed 37 out of 60 games. 2021 missed 94 games. 2022 missed 108 games. 2023 missed 75 games. He's played more than 100 games once in a season, and now he's going into his age 33 season. Yes, I know he's not playing catcher, but that doesn't mean that he can't get hurt base running, that he can't get hurt, actually batting. He's talking about the upside with 400 plate appearances. I do think that's real, but I also think that gives you more injury concern. Really the 2019 season with the Twins was the one that jumps out. He had 31 home runs, but only 67 RBIs, which are both career highs. He's never even had 20 home runs in a season besides that. And I know, once again, he hasn't had the plate appearances, but last year his stats looked better with a 313 BABIP. The year before it was 228. I'd expect it to land somewhere in the middle. It's not giving you any stolen base upside. I think the batting average fluctuates year to year. 270 last year, 207 the year before that, 256 the year before that, 167. I just don't think you know what you're getting from him. I think there's such a wide range of outcomes, but more of them are probably unfavorable. I don't think his ADP at 177 is awful, but I think you're just banking on power for your second catcher.
Go ahead, Art. I'm sorry.
I mean, Doc, you make some good points. I think you're an ageist, and I hate you. Because, like you young, you really emphasized his age. He's 33, and I think you said it with like this ass.
I don't like people
and
having
I don't like that.
I don't
Bounce backs.
I don't like banking on people like him and Sal Perez to have better seasons in the future than they've had in previous ones at a position like catcher, where I feel like there's more
All
of a
you
drop
need is
off.
for him to have last season, though. If he has last season again, he's really good. That's what I like about him, and I think he's got a chance to get his most plate appearances.
Agreed. I mean, Eric, just a couple things to your points. Number one, like in terms of catchers, this man strikes out, an under league average K rate. So he walks at a double-digit percentage clip. He hits for a 270 batting average. He's like, when he's healthy, he's played well. He's never had his career year because he's been hurt. Now, granted, like you said, like it's a trend because he's hurt every year, but his ADP is the 17th catcher off the board. So it's not like you're paying the price of Salvador Perez as the 6th catcher off the board in the top 131 picks. Salvador Perez 131. You're getting him as the 16th catcher, 176. So you get a little bit more of a discount with him. And he's a full-time DH. He's not playing any catcher this year. So like you're limiting the chances of him behind the plate getting hurt. He's only going to be hitting and running the bases. So is that fair to say that the injury risk is lower this year because he's not going to be playing catcher, which could lead to a career year for him? And you're getting him again, closer to ADP 200.
Once again, I look at last year, and I'm not going to disagree with you. 270, 19 homers, 95 runs plus RBIs. But the year before that, he hit 207. Yes, he still walked at a double-digit clip. Yes, he still struck out sub 25%. But that's a huge fluctuation in batting average. So, I mean, do you think he's going to be the 270 guy? He's also going to a worse hitting lineup. He was on the world champion Rangers last year. So now he's going to a worse hitting lineup. Are there going to be as many counting stat opportunities?
Well, he was only playing in 54 games that year. So I know he hasn't played in a lot of games consistently, but that was by far the least amount of games he's played in a season. Like in a normal season that wasn't COVID shortened.
I mean, he played 68 games the year before that in 2021.
I mean, 14 games, if he had gotten on a hot streak, that could have turned his whole batting average around, is my point.
I'll tell you what, in the 14 games difference, he had 3 more home runs and 16 more counting stats of runs and RBIs. I mean, look, I think he has upside. I just think you're banking on essentially power because I just don't see him giving you much else. That's just me.
Look, I respect it. If his ADP was higher, I might be a little questionable, but to me, I see a catcher that's a full-time DH.
David, let me ask you, do you think game 162, he's their starting DH?
I mean, he might miss time during the season and then come back.
But I'm saying, do you think, barring injury, they are going to keep him at DH the entire year?
Yeah, I do, because
okay.
Have you seen their lineup this year?
I mean, I've seen it.
It's awful. It's one of the worst lineups in the league when you look at their bottom half of their lineup. Like, they need people in there to hit, and he's one of their better hit. He's hitting, I have to double check a roster resource. I believe he's hitting like 4th or 5th, like cleanup. Like, he's in a prime spot right off the jump, which shows you how much they value his bat.
I bet you that by the end of the season, they have a different person that's DH almost every day.
And it's not because of injury, it's because of performance.
Yes.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see. If Garver plays 100 games this year, I think he's going to be a value at this spot for catcher.
If
I
he
think
played 104 games, that would set a career high. I'm rooting for
I
him.
said 100, which 100 and 162 game season as a DH is. I feel like
Hey, if he plays 100, then you're getting a value.
yeah, for sure. All right, then let's move now to Marty. And Marty, you like Tyler Stevenson in this range.
I don't. I'm throwing another curveball at you. I don't like him. He's boring. I meant to pick a different guy, so I'm going to pick a different guy.
Pick a different guy.
Luis Campusano. That's who I'm picking. He's the sexy pick. I think he's a really good second catcher with upside. Now he only had about 170 at bats last year because I think what was it? He had left thumb surgery. He had a torn ligament. So he's sidelined for the first 3 months of the year. But when he came back, XBA is 305. He has a little bit of pop in there. He doesn't strike out. I think he's a really good source of a 260, 270 batting average. Peak home run, 20. I think 20 would be the most you'd see from his profile because he's so contact heavy. Maybe if he works on a swing plane or something like that, he can kind of elevate the ball a little bit more. But I'm sure if you're hitting 305, you're probably not going to adjust too much. So I think he's going to play. They got who is it? They got Higgy from the Yankees. So he'll play a little. He'll probably have 300 plate appearances, where Luis will probably have close to 450. And with that and that average, that'll be fine. I think he's in a good spot. He's the 19th catcher off the board, and he could hit you. He could bat 300.
And LC, you also like Luis Campusano. Oh, LC's out of his chair. Hilarious.
Well, it's interesting. Don't go to ESPN to look for depth charts because they still have Juan Soto on the Padres.
Yeah.
No, there you go.
Cheesecake, I was saying you also like Luis Campusano.
Yeah, I do. I think that he's my young guy that I have been targeting as a potential breakout. I am worried about the Padres lineup being worse than it was, but I don't think it's going to be. I think he's got a great bat, and I think he's got a good chance to gobble up those plate appearances. And he deserved a 305 batting average last season. Hit 319. I think he could be a good batting average upside. He's going at a spendy price. You're taking him as a top 15 catcher, I think, maybe top 18, but he's my young guy who I'm targeting as sort of a breakout catcher.
All right, so the pod, I agree with you. I like Campusano as well. So
he's
we're all
17th. We were both wrong. 17th catcher off the board.
Very good value for someone we all think could break out this year. This last player we'll talk about in this range is interesting because both Marty and Art are out on this player. I like this player here, Francisco Alvarez. I would like Art for you to go ahead and then Marty, you can piggyback as well. Why you guys are out on Francisco Alvarez as the 11th catcher off the board right now, ADP about 148. You guys tell me why you're out on him, and then I'll tell you why I like him, and then obviously our audience can decide how they want to go on it. But Francisco Alvarez last year, 25 home runs in a rookie season, prospect pedigree. You guys, I'm assuming, just don't like the price.
Take yourself off mute, Marty. Let's tag team this one. All right.
Tag team on the ropes.
Yeah. I'll start off by talking about his second half. Second half is awful last season for Francisco Alvarez. He hit like 180 over the second half, and his power and counting stats really fell off. His production all came in the first half. Marty, you go.
I would be a hypocrite if I was to say, don't draft Cal Raleigh, but draft Francisco Alvarez. Alvarez had a 209 expected batting average last year. I think 25, 30 home runs is possible. And I think he could absolutely destroy your batting average. It's the exact same argument I have against Raleigh. And in that area where he's going, I'd rather have O'Hoppe. I'd rather have Naylor. I'd rather have Heim. I'd rather have Ruiz. I'd rather have Garver and Campusano. I'd rather have all of those guys over Alvarez. Now, if I had 10 different teams and I wanted to go for an upside pick, I think he's great. I think, he's fun, and it could really hit. But it's just the floor is so low. I don't want to do that. I'm just too conservative at that point.
I second everything Marty just said.
mean, we did talk about Cal Raleigh, but he is going after Cal Raleigh. And I think there is another gear in Alvarez's profile. So Cal Raleigh, we talked about, we were all kind of out on him as the 8th ranked catcher off the board, or I'm sorry, the 7th ranked catcher off the board going at pick 135. You're getting Alvarez 4 catchers after pick 148. So about a round or so later, he came in as a rookie. He was a top 5 consensus prospect in all of baseball. The Mets don't exactly have a loaded lineup, so they need him to play. 25 home runs in your rookie season. I don't care what you're hitting in your rookie season. If you hit 25 home runs, you have my attention. And Francisco Alvarez, I think, in a position that has some power aspects, but doesn't necessarily have all guaranteed playing time aspects. I think that Francisco Alvarez is a nice player here. Yeah, granted, I would wish his ADP was a little bit lower than in the 140s, but look, 209 batting average, 209 expected batting average is not going to get it done. 25 home runs is going to get it done. This is me trusting in the player and basically saying this is a discount Cal Raleigh, but there's an upside for more, as he showed in the minor leagues as well. Again, a swinging strike rate dropped 6% from his rookie season. Basically, he got a cup of coffee 5 games in 2022. He dropped a swinging strike rate 6% from the cup of coffee he did see in the major leagues. I know Art brought up his bad second half, but we've seen a lot of times rookies, the grind of a full season in the big leagues, sometimes that can happen. But now a full off season to kind of adjust, get ready and get in shape for his second year. I do think, again, 25, 30 home runs is not unrealistic from him with a 240 batting average, which we were just talking about would be worth it for Cal Raleigh. So
I said 250.
I mean, and I agree with everything you're saying, David. I think there's part of me is just there could be a month where he has 3 hits in the entire month, and you're just sitting there eating it, and it's hard to take it, and you want to drop them. And I don't like those players on my team, and that's I worry he's that kind of streaky, like
Gary Sanchez.
Gary Sanchez, streaky type of hitter. Yeah. Gary Sanchez just signed with Milwaukee today. Maybe he's going to be brought up later. I'm not sure. I'm thinking about it. But he's got Contreras in front of him. Anyways, Gary Sanchez streaky for Alvarez. That's what I worry about. You're going to want to drop him. And you might miss the month he's awesome after you drop him. And it would just so frustrating.
His walk percentage did go up as he progressed in his rookie year, which is something you'd love to see him be able to maybe tap into getting his walk rate up. Could do him and his batting average a lot of good. So I do like that. I'll be keeping an eye on him this year, but at where he's at, it's just, there's too many guaranteed things right there. I'd rather not. But like I said, if I had going for an overall, I had $50 to burn. Why not?
The other player I do want to bring up in this range is Bo Naylor. I think he's also a sneaky value here for the Guardians as one of their catchers. I like Bo and Josh Naylor this year. I think there's another gear in his profile as well. But yeah, as we talked about, there's a lot of options here. We talked about just in this range alone, we brought up Alvarez, Bo Naylor, Jonah Heim, Keibert Ruiz, Mitch Garver, Luis Campusano. There's a lot of good guys here. And as we'll continue with the last range of players going after pick 20, Shea Langoliers is the first one going as the 21st catcher off the board. And he, to me, is a really good value here. And Elsie, I know this is one of the guys you were debating about bringing up in this section.
Yeah, Shea is a guy. I think he's in that Raleigh and Alvarez mold. He's 100 picks plus past Alvarez. So I think he's a great option there. And he's going to be the starting catcher for Oakland all season. 210 batting average, but plus 20 home run power. You're able to shore up your batting average a little better in your earlier picks. And I think you're going to get similar production to probably not the total runs and RBIs of a Raleigh or Alvarez if they play all their games, but solid home runs definitely, and solid runs and RBIs for a catcher from Langoliers.
I want to add that in the second half, his expecting batting average was 250. So he's making a lot of really good adjustments. So I'm really excited for where he's going to. I think that's I think he's really underrated.
Art, anybody else you would like to bring up in this range? Because I know you put a couple names down.
Well, I did want to bring up Gary Sanchez signing with Milwaukee. I think he might get some DH at bats there. He could be a decent late
Five
pick.
562 ADP.
Yeah, he's a decent draft and hold catcher, I think, to get because I think there's going to be episodes of usefulness for him. But I also wanted to throw out our boy Jake Rogers, Detroit. He's got a great barrel rate over the last 2 seasons. I think his batting average is he's another one of these power first guys. Could have 30 home run power. He really has a lot of pop in that bat. And he's going pretty late too. So those are the guys I want to point out.
Yeah, Jake Rogers, the 25th catcher off the board. As you mentioned, 21 home runs last year. There's a lot of power at catcher this year. I think that's becoming very clear. With Rogers hitting 20 plus home runs, Langoliers hitting 20 plus home runs, Alvarez hitting 20 plus home runs, all very young catchers that are hitting 20 plus bombs in their rookie season. But mixed into the 20 plus home run catchers is a name that is not familiar in this range. He's usually a lot higher, Doc. Alejandro Kirk, going after pick 200. He's the 21st catcher off the board. Last year was ranked as a top 5 catcher. I think it was top 5 or 6, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to double check that. Usually one of the safer batting average players for catcher. Power completely disappeared. 8 home runs in all of 2023. Granted, a 250 batting average, but this was coming off a 285, 14 homer season for him. Why should we believe that Kirk is going to bounce back to be anything better than a second catcher that gives you batting average at this point?
Well, I mean, at this point, you are drafting him as a second catcher, but this is also the cheapest that you've gotten him. And when you look at his career, a 10.6 walk percentage and 11 K percentage. So great contact skills and somebody that gets on base a decent amount. He's projected to hit 8th in the Blue Jays lineup, which, I think obviously they underperformed a little bit last season, but when you still look at them on paper, top 5 potential lineup there. So I look at the counting stats. One of the things that does concern me, but this is baked into his ADP, is that he hasn't played a lot of games. He played 60 in 2021, he played 139 in 2022, and 123 last year. I'm hoping he can get back to 130 plus. I think the fact that the Blue Jays did trade Gabriel Moreno and that Dalton Varsho will most likely be in the outfield instead of catching.
He is a full-time outfielder now, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was saying that in case he still had catcher eligibility for some formats. But, I think there's a clear path to him playing catcher most days. One of the things I'm going to look at is the launch angle. In his career years at 14.7 degrees, and I believe it was around 8.5 degrees last year. So I think that's something that he needs to work on. But, once again, I think you're getting him at a discount. And, at this point, if he doesn't pan out, I mean, he's not going to kill your batting average. He might just not give you power and counting stats and stolen bases, but there's a little bit of upside there.
You worried that Danny Jansen could eat into his playing time enough to where it's more of a headache having him even as a second catcher because he's not getting enough plate appearances?
I do worry about that a little bit. And, once again, this is someone that you're taking as the 21st ranked catcher on the board. I do think that there's upside there as opposed to Danny Jansen, where you kind of know what you're getting. And that's why, Jansen is ranked shortly after him, because that risk is there. But I just like the upside of Kirk. He's 25 years old. I don't, with a lot of the young catchers I've talked about here is guys I think that you can get at a discount that maybe we haven't seen their best year yet.
Again, I think Kirk's a nice value, but these guys are mostly relevant in 2 catcher leagues. And in 2 catcher leagues, you basically have guys that split playing time going back to back. That's the only reason I'm a little hesitant about it, is just the headache of, okay, Kirk started 3 games. Granted, he'll play some DH here now and again, but that's my biggest.
Well, I was going to say, you hit the nail on the head, right? Most of these catchers 20 plus are splitting time.
But Langoliers is their full-time catcher for Oakland, or their starting catcher. Ryan Jeffers going 20 is the starting catcher for the Twins. I believe Austin Wells, isn't he the starting catcher for the Yankees this year?
I would rather have a part-time catcher on the Blue Jays than a full-time catcher on the Athletics.
What about, is Jake Rogers the full-time catcher this year, Marty?
Yeah, and kind of break that down. Austin Wells, the Yankees aren't sure if he's going to be a catcher moving forward. He might be a first baseman. So I'm expecting like a 50-50 split there. Do you think it's going to be a 50-50 split in Minnesota with Vasquez, or do you think Jeffers gets 70% of it?
Jeffers, I actually did a lot of research for this when I was coming on Bubba's show because I was doing the Twins preview. Vasquez is strictly just to give him a breather. They're excited for Jeffers this year to be the starting catcher and to be playing almost every day. They think, again, he had, his numbers weren't amazing last year, but Vasquez was awful. And so I think Jeffers will be a full-time catcher this year.
Yeah, I hope he gets the plate appearances. If he does, he'll be worth that draft spot for sure.
Yeah.
If he gets like 450 to 500 plate appearances, that'd be great. But the projections I think the projections are low on him. Bladex has him at like 375 still. I'm like, I don't see Vasquez. I don't think he's that good. I don't think Vasquez is that good anymore. I think he's kind of washed.
Yeah, I think, was it with Boston when he had that career year?
Yeah.
That everybody kind of looks at that and they're like, oh, maybe, he's a backup catcher, but he has all that, potential in him. No, I don't think so. I'm actually, if I'm trying to remember, I'm trying to remember I'm looking at what his ADP was when I went on Bubba's show just to see if it went down or up when I did it. And he was, no, I don't have his ADP. I said he was 247 and he was the 21st catcher off the board. So he's about the same ADP. So he hasn't jumped up. This was like a month-ish ago. But 276, 369, 490 triple slash. He had over 335 plate appearances, a 369 WOBA, and 138 WRC plus, tied with Mitch Garver for the best rate of an offensive production among catchers with 300 PAs last year. End of the season, Jeffers was the lead catcher, and he started all of their playoff games. He did have a 359 BABIP, so that will obviously regress. But again, to have the best WRC plus or tied with the best WRC plus of any catcher with over 300 PAs last year, I think there is, again, a lot of potential for Jeffers. So I like him there. Marty finishes off with Rene Pinto, a name many might not be familiar with, but definitely valuable here.
Yeah, starting catcher for the Tampa Bay Rays, 30th catcher off the board. He hits the ball hard, and he's going to play. That's my hard-hitting analysis with Rene Pinto coming off. What's his ADP? Like, is it 500?
443.
Yeah. So maybe if you're shooting for upside with the backup, your second catcher. Any one catcher leagues, you don't stay far away. But his X slug looks good. He barrels the ball at a high rate. Right now, he's going to be the starting catcher for the team. So he's a body. He'll play.
All right, Rene Pinto to finish out our catcher previews. Is there any other names you guys want to bring up? I know we brought up a lot of names tonight, but just someone that maybe came to mind during the show, or someone that that you forgot to mention that you wanted to bring up? Because again, I think we hit a good amount of them. I'm looking late. Travis d'Arnaud, 30th ranked catcher, splits time with, obviously if anything happens to Sean Murphy, he's like, you could say, quote unquote, the best catching handcuff right now.
He's 35, isn't he? I'm just worried I don't know how much
he's had a lot of concussions.
I don't know, how old is that guy?
34.
34. Okay.
Yeah.
Us 35-year-olds are very, very old. Logan O'Hoppe, I'm just afraid of him, and he's just made of glass. There's an injury concern.
True.
I think, other than that, I think he's okay for where he's going. I'm staying away from him.
I don't hate Yasmani Grandal at the.
What about Max Stassi, the starting catcher?
Grandal's where
he doesn't have a team
when he signs. Yeah, he's real late.
He may not sign. There is no. I've been looking to see if there's any rumors or anything going on with him. It's.
But I mean, here's the thing: a bunch of players haven't been signed.
No, I know. I just don't know if anyone's.
What about Max
kind of a dick too?
I mean, if he is a dick, then I don't know.
Yeah, I think he is.
That's what I heard.
Stassi needs to stay healthy, but I like him.
691 ADP.
If Stassi stays healthy, he'd be really good. He's in Chicago, the White Sox. It's a good ballpark to hit in. And I mean, they have Corey Lee.
Damn it, they brought in Martin Maldonado.
Did. Yeah,
that's what.
What a crazy
The
situation
White
with the White
Sox
Sox.
suck. They just suck. Everything they do sucks.
Yeah.
It's such a good team and they blew it. I just don't understand that.
Oh man, it's like that. Do you guys ever seen Copland when Robert De Niro's talking to Stallone? He says, "I gave you a chance to be a real cop, and you blew it." He has a sandwich in his hand. One of the best scenes in movie history.
Never seen that.
That's exactly it.
Oh man. Well,
Cheesecake, you're outdating yourself, says this ageist.
all right. On that note, if you guys are enjoying the pod or watching on YouTube, make sure if you're watching on YouTube, you like and subscribe to the channel so you never miss when we go live or when Art gives the finger to Eric. And if you want to listen on the podcast, you guys can listen anywhere you get podcasts, Triple Play Fantasy Baseball, and on any platform. Rate and review the show 5 stars. If you do that, we'll shout you out. And obviously, it helps us get our podcast seen by more people. And next week, we will be back with the outfield position previews. But until then, for LC, for Doc, for Marty Party, I'm D Mendy. We're going to make like a bread truck and we're going to haul these buns. We'll talk to you guys next week.